Today we will start with wave, motion and sound. Now in this chapter first we will discuss about wave motion. When there is a still water and we throw a pebble on it, means if we have a container and it is containing some amount of water and the water is still, means it is at rest, and we suddenly throw a pebble or a stone in the water, we see or we notice that some ripples that are circular in shape are formed on the surface of water. Means when we throw a stone, there travels or there occurs a disturbance in the water which was initially at rest. These ripples are known as the waves. Means whenever there is a disturbance, they travel in the form of wave. So traveling of disturbance is known as the wave motion. So a wave motion is a cause due to the disturbance in the material. Now we will discuss that wave motion. During wave motion, there is a transfer of energy, but there is no transfer of matter during the wave motion. So we can define it as and their transfer of energy which takes place in the wave motion is through some medium. So in the medium during wave motion there is a transfer of energy, and in that medium the matter does not travels. Now we will discuss about that the waves are classified into various categories. So classification of waves. The classification of waves, first we will study that is dependent on that how the particles or how the medium requires. That we said that there is a transfer of energy, so it must be requiring some amount of or any kind of medium. So first we will classify depending upon the medium required. In this classification, we have two types of waves. First is mechanical waves and other is non-mechanical waves. Mechanical waves are also known as the elastic waves. First we will take mechanical waves. Mechanical waves are those waves which require some material medium to travel through. Means as they travel or as they can propagate or they can proceed only when there is some material medium. Material medium can be solid, liquid or gas. We can take example of sound waves. As we have studied that sound waves cannot travel through vacuum. Means whenever there is a sound produced, it needs some material medium to travel. As we speak, so air is a medium through which these waves travel, and these are audible to some else or to any other person. So sound waves are mechanical or elastic waves. Now we will study about non-mechanical waves. These non-mechanical waves are also known as electromagnetic waves. These are the waves which do not require any material medium to proceed to or to travel. Means they can even travel through vacuum. In non-mechanical wave, we can take example of radio waves. These are the waves which can even travel through vacuum. Now, we have studied two types of waves. Now we will compare that how these two waves are distinguished or different from each other. First basic difference is that mechanical waves require material medium to travel, while non-mechanical waves do not require any material medium to travel. As they do not require material medium, so they are produced due to varying electric or magnetic field. As we said that non-mechanical waves are also known as electromagnetic waves. So we can see that the name only suggests that there is a presence of electric and magnetic field. So whenever there is a change in electric or magnetic field, they produce the waves which are termed as non-mechanical waves. And mechanical waves usually have low frequency and large wavelength, while non-mechanical waves have high frequency but extremely short wavelength. And mechanical waves can be transverse or longitudinal waves, but non-mechanical waves are only transverse waves. These are the few basic points which can be written as a distinguish between both these waves. Now we will study about classification of waves, which is dependent on the direction of vibration of medium particles, which are responsible to produce the waves. In this type, again we have two types of waves. First is transverse wave and other is longitudinal wave. In transverse wave, the particles or the individual particle of the medium vibrate in the direction at right angle to the direction of wave propagation. Means the particles which are present, they vibrate perpendicular to the direction of movement of wave. It can be clearly depicted by the figure. If we consider that this line represents the wave motion, then the particles will vibrate in this way. So this figure depicts the movement of particles in the transverse wave. The topmost point in the upper half is known as crust. This point is known as crust, while lowermost point, lower displacement, is known as trough. So, the maximum displacement in the positive half is represented by the trough, while in the negative cycle, the maximum displacement is represented by trough. In the transverse wave, we can take example of waves which are formed over the surface of water. Means the example which we have taken was of the water surface. The waves which are formed on that surface are known as transverse waves because the individual particle in that medium will vibrate perpendicular to the wave propagation. Next, we will discuss about longitudinal waves. As we said that the particles in transverse wave are perpendicular, but in longitudinal wave, the particles vibrate about their mean position and they travel in the form of compression and rarefaction, which is depicted by this. This is compression, then rarefaction, then compression, then rarefaction. So C represents compression and R represents rarefaction. In the longitudinal waves, as they travel, the particles of the medium vibrate back and forth in the same direction in which the wave travels. In this, as we said that compression and rarefactions are formed, so due to the formation of these two regions, the density of the particle varies. So, at any instant where points are pressurized or they have the maximum density, that is known as the compression, while when they have the minimum density, they are termed or that region is termed as rarefaction. These compressions and rarefaction occur one after the other, means they occur in the successive series. Now we will discuss about that what are the differences between these two waves. First basic difference we have studied that in transverse particles are vibrating perpendicular to the wave propagation, while in longitudinal they vibrate in the direction of wave propagation. Transverse wave can propagate through solids and over the surface of liquid. Means on the surface of liquid the waves which are formed are transverse, while the longitudinal waves can travel through or they can propagate through solid, liquid and gases. Now we will discuss about some terms which are related to waves. First we will discuss about amplitude. The maximum displacement of the vibrating particles from the mean position is known as amplitude. Means in the above figure, the green line represents the amplitude of the wave. It is denoted by small a or capital A, either one. So, maximum displacement of the vibrating particle from mean position is amplitude. Next, we will discuss about wavelength. When we move, we say that we have covered this much of distance. Similarly, the distance which is travelled by the wave is known as wavelength. It is defined as the distance between two consecutive crust or trough, that is only in the transverse wave. So, the distance between two consecutive crust and trough in the transverse wave is termed as wavelength, while in case of longitudinal wave, the distance between two consecutive compression or rarefaction is known as wavelength. It is represented by lambda and its unit is meter. Next, we will discuss about time period. It is denoted by capital T. It is the time which is taken by vibrating particle to make one complete vibration. It may also be defined as time taken by a wave to move a distance that is equal to its wavelength, that is lambda. Its unit is second. Next, we will study about frequency. Frequency is a term which is related to time period. We can define it as the number of vibrations which are completed by a particle in 1 second, or it may also be defined as the number of waves passing a given point that is fixed in 1 second. It is denoted by sometimes by small n and sometimes by capital N. Either can be used. Its unit is hertz. It can be calculated as n, that is frequency, is equal to 1 by time period, that is t. If we cross multiply this quantities, that is n frequency multiplied by t, that is time period, gives 1. So the product of frequency and time period is 1, and frequency can be calculated by as 1 by time period. Now we will calculate wave velocity, which is represented by v. As we know, velocity is the distance travelled divided by time taken. So, in case of wave velocity, it is distance travelled by one wave divided by time taken by one wave. As we have discussed now, that distance traveled is represented by lambda, that is wavelength, and time period is represented by t. So v, that is wave velocity, is equal to lambda by t. V equal to lambda by t. And we know that 1 by t, that is 1 by time period, is equal to n, that is frequency. So v can be written as lambda into n. So the wave velocity is a product of wavelength into frequency.